I think he was talking to a student here. A philosopher would probably be a low-grade moron if he
I
tried to
saw
paint.
that.
I was like,
That,
oh, that's great.
that made me laugh.
It's fun to have a little spice in there. Hello, and welcome to the Practical Palette Podcast.
I'm Tara.
And I'm Mark, and we'll explore the world of fine art and representational painting through the lens of philosophy, art history, and our own art-making practices. Today, Tara and I will be talking about the book Hawthorne on Painting. Hi, Tara.
Hi, Mark. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited to get into our podcast today.
I know.
Yeah, what are we talking about?
We are going to be looking at, for those of you who are on YouTube, I am putting it on the screen, Hawthorne on painting. And it's a collection written by his wife. 1938 was the published date. And we will see whether or not the book has stood the test of time. Is this relevant to us today? I think is a good question to ask.
Yeah, it being a collection of these ideas that he would espouse in his classes, because him being a teacher, I think will be a fun way to look at both his life as a teacher and artist, and how we do things these days.
I actually found like multiple copies of this book in my house. So there have been multiple times in my life where I'm like, I should read that book, and then I've
Mhm,
never done it.
mhm,
And I can't say that anything in it was like life altering to
mhm.
me. I'm not
Yeah,
sure how you felt about it, but um yeah, it was okay. It was just kind of
mhm.
a lot of stuff I'd already heard.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
guess the time that I needed to read this book was a while ago. Um, since I've heard a lot of these things. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like the things in the book were good. I found it more interesting actually from a teaching standpoint. Um, having taught now for a number of years, like there are a number of phrases that he would repeat over and over that I'm like, oh, he's been teaching for a long time at this point.
Hmm.
Like he's saying the same things. Um, and you kind of get into his head a little bit about his approach to teaching in a I think in a way that you otherwise might not. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Did you look up a lot of his work?
I did. I mean,
That's
I
something
didn't.
that I kind of failed to do. Actually, might do that right now while we're talking.
Yeah, I didn't do like a deep dive, but some of the things he was talking about, which we'll get into in a little bit, like the spots of color and things like that. I'm like, what exactly is he talking about? Um, which I did find like it made a lot more sense once I saw his work, I should say.
It's just kind of funny because I mean I've seen I feel like I've seen a couple things, but I
Mhm.
feel like I was mixing him up with Carlson, the
Oh yeah, yeah.
John Carlson. I think
Hmm.
it's John, right?
I
Um
think so.
okay. This is interesting. I'm not a big like portrait person. I
Hmm.
mean, I think they're okay, but like somebody said to me once, they were like, "What on earth could be more interesting to paint than human beings?" And I'm like, I could think of a million things that I would find more interesting.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I get it. And also, it's funny because he relates to watercolor, which I have absolutely no relationship with at all.
Hmm.
I mean, I look at a watercolor and I'm like hungry for opacity, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it just does not appeal to me. That does not mean it's bad, but
Hmm.
it's just not my it I have only been moved by one watercolor in my entire life, and I did get to see Sargent's is it crocodiles or alligators? I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah, the I think it's alligators, right?
But I saw it in person and that
Mhm.
was like wow. But
Yeah.
other than that, I've never seen really many, if any, watercolors that have moved me.
Hmm.
I'm an opacity kind of gal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Suck it, watercolor artists.
suck it. Just kidding. Sorry, everyone. That was just a joke.
No,
Um,
I definitely appreciate watercolors because it is kind of like this controlled chaos, which can be
mhm.
really exciting. It can get gimmicky and techniquey very quickly.
Yeah.
Uh, and yeah, I for me, I definitely want to play with like I like having transparency in my paintings with the oils. But I also, like you said, I like some opacity and getting that push pull with the transparency, opacity, thick, thin, all that kind of stuff. Playing with texture, which you just
Yeah.
can't do with watercolor in the same way.
Right. And I think everybody has mediums that you respond to more strongly. That's just not one
Of
that
course.
really moves
Yeah.
my barometer much,
Hmm. Yeah.
personally. No offense to all you watercolor people out there. I don't mean it. Your work is beautiful.
Yeah. It's very cute. Oh,
Wow.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
That's getting edited out.
it. Yeah, so his work, it's interesting. It's not my bag either, I think. Some of it is interesting. I think his use of color, he goes on and on about color in the book. So I wasn't surprised to see a lot of interest in color. Um, it's interesting. I wouldn't say I love it.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it's not bad. I don't know.
Yeah, one of
Some
the
of it.
things that he said that I thought was interesting was I'm going to quote him here, although I don't remember the page. I should have written page numbers down on these. Plane relationships are more representable through comparative value than implications of contour drawing. And I do think about planes when I'm working. Do you think about
Mhm.
planes when you're working?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you think about form and light, it's really all about planes and
Hmm.
how light is hitting a specific plane. That's going to inform how the light affects the color that you're seeing.
Yeah. And I thought it would be really fun as an exercise. Not that anybody has to do this, but I was like, oh, this would be kind of interesting to take a painting and divide it in half and do one of the other things that he spoke about was he seemed very down on contour drawing, which is funny
Hmm.
because I love contour drawing.
Hmm.
And he sounded like he seemed down on drawing in general, didn't he?
Yes,
He was a little
curmudgeon-y.
he dated drawing and it did him wrong or something.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
so he talked about too this idea of doing a drawing and then just like filling in colors.
Hmm.
Like it was a bad thing to have a drawing,
Hmm.
which is interesting because I think almost everyone that I'm aware of does a drawing of some kind. You have to have some kind of map available to you.
Hmm.
And so the exercise that I thought would be interesting would be taking a reference and splitting a canvas in half and doing one side with a drawing that you fill in, and then
Hmm.
the other side strictly color planes, like no drawing at all, and
Hmm.
just see how the method affects what the final product is. I think that
Yeah.
would be kind of a fun exercise personally, but
Hmm. Yeah, let me see if I can find a quote. Because I similarly, right off the bat, I was like, oh, this dude does not like drawing. And
hmm.
I'm like, we're going to be at odds through this whole book. Granted, it's a short read, so it's
Sure.
wasn't that painful, but um, yeah, remember, no amount of good drawing will pull you out if your colors are not true. Get them true, and you will be surprised how little else you need. Which that maybe there's some truth in that. Like a lot of it, I'm curious if it's like a semantic argument, like he's thinking of drawing differently than we are, if he's
Right,
thinking
right.
literally a line drawing. Because when you said, putting down shapes of color, like in my mind, I'm thinking that's drawing, with painting.
Hmm.
It's not literal line drawing, but we're thinking about shape and edge, um, while putting down color.
Right.
Um, and so I'm curious if he's, where his distinction is. Um, I'm trying to be generous in my reading of it and think that like clearly he knows how to draw and there is drawing in his paintings. So uh
Right. And he taught a lot. So I would think to me,
mhm,
drawing is like the essential step of being a painter.
mhm,
Like most of the time, like if I'm teaching, a lot of times people struggle with value, certainly.
mhm.
But they also don't know how to draw a lot of times.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a big challenge to being able to represent something if you don't know how to draw it. So
Mhm.
I think that he is pushing against that, seemingly. And to me, it's such an essential ability in painting or any kind of representational anything, really.
Yeah. He had a line about figure drawing. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, do not, he's talking about the portrait. Do not put in features. The right spots of color will tell more about the appearance, the likeness of the person than the features or good drawing. Uh, and to which I'm like, no, not at all.
Well, didn't he do, when I just did a quick Google search, he
Mhm.
did some mud heads, right? Like he
Yeah.
was a mud head kind of guy.
Mhm.
And so maybe that's what he means. Maybe that's what he means. Maybe
Yeah.
he's talking mud heads.
I think, okay, so there is an element of truth in what he's saying. So if you've ever seen someone you know from like 50 feet away, but you can
Hmm.
recognize them based on their head shape, posture, and all that. So
Hmm.
you don't need to see the individual features, but really your brain's actually picking up on the relationship between the features. This is how caricature works. You don't
Hmm.
actually look at individual features, you look at the relationships and the proportions. And you can see that from 50 feet away. So it might be something like that that he's talking about, but there still is an issue with the drawing because you need the proportions to be right. You need the spacing to be right and how the features relate to one another, uh,
Especially in the figure.
especially in the figure. So I think he's just wrong, or he's saying something else, which I'm not 100% sure on. But um, I found it interesting to be so in disagreement with him, like right off the bat, because some of those, I mean, that
Hmm.
that was on page 26, like that's
Yeah.
right at the beginning. So,
And like I said, he was a teacher,
mhm,
and there was a quote, and it says he would do the 4-hour marathons with students
mhm,
and pass judgment or, critique, as many as 800 to 1,000 studies submitted by 100 or more students.
mhm,
Like, that's wild.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of critique.
Mhm. And I question the quality of those critiques. Like,
You're
how
like,
much can you really get
I'm
in?
done.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, certainly by the end, you got to be brain fried. But yeah, I mean, how much? I mean, if they're just studies, I guess you can make a very quick assessment to what's going on with the painting. Uh, but I don't know. I would still like to spend a couple minutes with a painting, even if it's just a study, to like give a like real good feedback. The way that line was written in the book, it was like it was an accomplishment to do this many drawings or to do this many critiques in 4 hours. Like it's a
Oh, well,
marathon.
I was gonna say, like, there's what, 60 seconds in a minute and 60
Mhm.
minutes in an hour times four divided by 1,000. That's like how many seconds on each piece, you
Yeah.
know? It's like, you suck. Next. You're good. Next.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
what? That's funny.
Uh,
That's a
we
lot.
some of that was, I think, written by his wife, so it might be a little bit of like myth building, like this is
Hmm.
the great teacher. Um, but I don't know, I guess us as teachers or even as students, we're like, I would hate that. Like that's not, I don't see how that would help me at all.
Yeah.
Um, it
He
sounds impressive in the way that plein air painting can sometimes sound impressive. Like I did 15 paintings this week, and it's like, yeah, but how good were they? You know,
That's
like I don't
funny.
care how many you did. Like show me it's quality over quantity. That
I
whole,
was
whole
just
idea.
thinking the same thing. Yeah. I was just thinking that. Well, and he also just says a lot about, especially in the beginning, about kind of the like the intuitive like why of painting, you know.
Hmm.
Like he says painting rises out of the volcanic center of the artist's temperament, which I can relate to because we were talking about um, you know, that impulsive behavior
Hmm.
or the more restrained behavior. And I think of, you know, a student once was in a class and they were like, um, I want to be more loose. I want to be more dynamic. And I'm like, oh,
Hmm.
cool. Like, what are your hobbies? Like, what's your job? Like, what do you like?
Hmm.
And she was like, well, I'm an investigative tax consultant and I love detail. And I was kind of like, oh, poop. And it's not that you can't, you know, anybody can modify their behavior if they have a strong enough desire to do so.
Hmm.
But at the same time, it's kind of like if you would just flow with like the current of your personality in your painting,
Hmm.
it's gonna be a much more enjoyable experience for you as a painter, I
Hmm.
think. And therefore, hypothetically, the work would show that, don't you think?
Oh, definitely. When we're just starting out, I think you try on a lot of different hats. Like I started out maybe a little more refined and meticulous, which is kind of my nature. But then I would see, people like you, or you brought up Derek Penix in the last episode, and guys like him who are way more, free with the paint, throwing paint around, a little bit more messy, and gestural. Um, and I wanted a little bit of that in my work, and it helped. Like I tried that hat on for a little while, but like I kept on coming back to a little bit more controlled. Um, but you need to play around with a bunch of different things, I think, because some of that still remains in my work, even though it's not terribly loose. But being able to play in some of that painterly world is has helped me, I should say. But to your point, I think you are right. You have to kind of know your temperament and stay true to that.
There's
Um,
like a self-awareness piece, right?
mhm. Yeah, yeah.
I know that I struggle with this or I know that I struggle with that. It doesn't mean that you can't work on improving those things because
Mhm.
I'm certainly not saying that you can't. I'm just saying sometimes it's best to kind of embrace those qualities about yourself and learn how to work with them
Mhm.
rather than choosing something that's so foreign and so anti what you are
Mhm.
um, to try and force that upon yourself.
Yeah.
Um, and it's more of a fight at that point. You know, you're not necessarily enjoying the painting process if you're forcing yourself to do something that you don't really want to do or feel compelled to do.
Mhm.
Which brings up another quote he said, as a painter, if you're not going to get a thrill, how can you give it to someone else? And I think
Yeah.
that's a very valid thing. It's like if you're not excited about it, how are you going to get somebody else excited about it? Because it's like, you know,
Mhm.
what are you trying to say?
Yeah. He had a couple of good lines like that. Let's see if I can find the one I was. Yeah, no one is forcing you to paint. You are doing it because you like to do so. So go out this week and bring in something that shows that you had a great time painting, lots of fun. No matter how slight the effort, it should be interesting. So yeah, getting to that idea of like uh, have not just have fun with it, but be interested in what you're doing.
Hmm.
Um, because if you're not, then and that's
Hmm.
something I think we can like a trap we can fall into the longer we do this. Like I'm a painter, so therefore I have to paint, and sometimes it feels like work. Uh, and I mean that happens fairly often. And if you're not interested in what you're doing, it's going to be so much worse. And I think the work suffers because of it.
Hmm.
You know.
Yeah, it is. I think that boils down to me also thinking that, and he said this too. Um, he says there isn't room in your consciousness for more than one sentiment about a thing. Like
Hmm.
tell that one. And so when you approach a scene, be it plein air or in a reference, or when you're out even taking references, just saying, like, what is the one thing that is driving me to want to share this with a viewer?
Hmm.
And then I feel like everything else should support that concept. So, like, let's say you have some kind of landscape with something interesting in the foreground, then you know that the background needs to kind of shut up and be quiet and sit down. And that's going to help support whatever it is in that foreground that you're trying to kind of, emphasize. And
Hmm.
so I do think that it's important to remember that one thing and then have everything kind of build up, crescendo into that idea. And I do like that he mentioned that a couple times.
Hmm.
That, it's once again, if you're not going to get a thrill, how can you give it to somebody else? I think that's a great way to think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. That whole idea of, clarity of intent. Um, I think that definitely shows in his work, though some of it gets a little bit muddy for my taste. But yeah, it's what is this painting about? And everything in the painting has to be in service of that idea.
Right.
Um, which no matter how you're painting, whether you're painting like him or like one of us, or God forbid, doing a watercolor, um, you know, oh, we're gonna get in trouble on this one.
I'm in trouble. That wasn't you. You loved it. So
uh,
it's okay. I mean, it's funny because, like, a lot of times I'm not really moved by sculpture either.
mhm,
Like functional form, like I love like pottery that is functional, but just like purely sculptural sculpture for the sake of sculpture.
mhm,
Once again, not a barometer mover on this soul. But
mhm.
that doesn't mean it doesn't have value, and it doesn't mean that it's not going to move somebody else's. It's just, everybody has things that move them, and that's just not one of the things that moves me. So
Yeah.
I'm not knocking it. Just saying.
That reminds me of the old joke. What sculpture is. It's what you bump into when you're backing up to look at a painting.
Yeah, exactly. Funny.
Uh,
Add function and I'm good. Like I
mhm,
love, functional form,
mhm.
but just kind of funny. So,
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I guess getting back to some of his quotes, he was very quotable. That was the thing. I don't know if I should be surprised by that. I think some teachers are very quotable. Um,
hmm.
but like a couple that I really liked, um, that I mean, we can unpack them if we want, but I like them just as standalone lines. Uh, Make your canvas drip with sunlight. Like that's
Mm.
very evocative. Um, or go out like a savage. It just sounds
It's
very
funny.
punk rock.
You put that in the stuff you like. I'm
Mhm.
like, I don't want you to go out like a savage. I want you to go in like a savage. Just saying.
Oh, interesting.
So I saw that and I was like, meh, I feel like you shouldn't go out like a savage. You should go in like a savage
Hmm.
and go out like a little more poised than a savage. That was
Hmm.
my take on
Yeah,
that. So
that's interesting.
just
Nuanced.
just weird.
Yeah. I guess I just like the sentiment of a certain like
Attack.
reckless abandon,
Yeah.
you know. Um, like yeah, just give it hell and don't be too precious about anything. He does
Sure.
say a number of times about pretty things and being precious,
Hmm.
which I don't know if I can find an exact quote, but um, that was some of those ideas I think needed to get fleshed out a little bit more, where there are things in nature that are precious and delicate, whether that be a flower or if you're doing a floral, or just all kinds of things. A sunset could be described as delicate and pretty. Um, and he kind of poo-poos a lot of that stuff. It seems like shy away from the things that are pretty in nature and find something that's ugly and make it beautiful. Which is fine, but I don't think that's like the only thing you can do as a painter. you know.
Yeah, I have total mixed feelings about that because when I was in college, I had this art professor. I'm sure she's not listening. I thought she was, we fought like siblings almost. Like she was pretty young and um I just I really disagreed with a lot of what she was about, which is
Hmm.
fine. You know, everybody's entitled to feel how they feel. And so one of the things she would always say was, "We're not making sofa art, people. We're
Mm.
not making sofa art. We're not making art that's pretty. We're not making art that's pretty that's going to hang on a wall. We're not making sofa art." And I was
Hmm.
like, "Okay, fine." To the point where this is hilarious. You know how like you take a painting class and they bring you a still life and they bring out a, I don't know, a teapot and a bowl of fruit
Hmm.
and maybe a cup or
Hmm.
a strawberry and a tablecloth. This
Hmm.
is what she would do. She would go to the thrift store and she would find the nappiest ass dolls she could find. Like ugly, like hair melted off,
Hmm.
disgusting looking dolls that stickers 50 cents on the head, like disgusting, ugly dolls. And she would set them up in a still life. She's
Hmm.
like, "We're not making sofa art here, people. Like this is you're learning to paint." And part of me is like, okay, I get the idea that, you know, it's important to learn to see no matter what the subject is. I get
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
Totally. I applaud her for that. But when we talk back to that thing, like if you're not going to get a thrill, how can you give it to someone else? How can I be excited about painting some nappy ass Barbie doll that you found at the thrift store when I have no interest in doing that? I'm not,
Hmm.
and it's not that I can't do it, it's that I don't want to do it. And
Hmm.
so it was this like dichotomy of genius and frustration because I'm like, yes, it's genius that we're not like, "Oh, look how pretty the fruit is. I'm gonna do a
Hmm.
nice round, whatever."
Yeah.
And then against that, you have this horribly ugly, stupid thing that's like sitting there like nobody would want to paint it. Nobody would want to look at it. Nobody
Hmm.
wanted to touch it, certainly. And so you're like, was that genius or was that cruel? I don't really know. But she was always like, "We're not making sofa art, people." And I
Hmm.
think it's important to understand whether or not, once again, you're going to dance with your viewer, you're going to fight with them.
Hmm.
And I think these people who are like, "We're not making pretty things," like, gah, it's
Yeah.
like, well, then what's the point? Like, isn't it to make yourself happy and make someone who's looking at it happy?
Hmm.
Or are you wanting to fight, which is fine. That's a fine desire, like if you should choose, but yeah.
It
Ugh.
feels a little bit like she's defining herself in opposition to pretty things. So that's it's
Mhm.
more a rejection of a pretty thing rather than I'm standing up for these dolls. You know, like I find these dolls to be very interesting, which someone might, I don't know. Um,
I think
I
that's a solid thing to say. I hadn't thought of it that way.
yeah. Which is that valid? Sure. I mean, it's very easy these days to define yourself in that way. Um, I find it more interesting generally, not always, but to say, hey, this is a thing that I love. Let me show you why I love it, you know.
Hmm.
Um, that said, okay, so another reading of why she would have you do that. It actually kind of relates to something Hawthorne would talk about. That was we're not painting things, you know. So it might be a way to like rid the idea that you're painting dolls. We're looking at texture and color, and you know,
Like
if
disassociate.
yeah, where if you're looking at a teapot with some strawberries and that you're thinking of, well, it's a strawberry, therefore it has to be red, and you might not be looking for, you know, more nuanced color within it. Um,
Yeah.
that's I don't know if that's necessarily what she was doing.
I think she
Again,
just wanted
I'm
to
trying to
torture
be
us, honestly.
generous. You know, art professors, and I love all my art professors that I had, but um, they can get up to some weird antics, you know.
Well, I just, I think you're right. I think what's interesting about what you said is the intent piece. her intent was not let's glorify these dolls,
Hmm.
which would be weird anyway.
Hmm.
But hers was more like you're not making something pretty in your learning process.
Hmm.
And to me, that was more what it was about. So it's interesting to hear another artist say, we're not making pretty things. And I'm like, I don't think that pretty things is always equal to um bad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Actually, on that, let's see if I've got the line. Um, uh, so Hawthorne said, "Color in nature is never pretty; it's beautiful." And I thought that sounds like a distinction without a difference. You
Right.
know,
Like, who
uh,
cares?
right. So
Right.
I think what he's trying to say is like things that are pretty can be trite and with no real depth to them.
Hmm.
Um, which even with that, I don't know. You could say the same thing for beauty if you want to, split hairs.
Right.
It's again like a semantic argument where I'm really trying to. I want to understand where he's coming from. Where your professor's coming from.
Hmm.
But it's again, yeah, it's like just positioning yourself in opposition to things that are pretty for for what reason, you know?
Well, you did put in the notes things that there was a quote and it says, humble yourself before nature. It's too majestic for you to do it justice. And what we're talking about to me kind of relates back to that idea in that, um, like there are certain landscapes that I'm like, it's just too perfect. It's just
Hmm.
too pretty. It's too sweet. It's too romantic. It's too not at all what I have an interest in.
Hmm.
And so maybe when he says, you know, not to paint things that are pretty and cutesy, maybe he's meaning more that, like,
Hmm.
because there are landscapes that I've seen that I'm like, oh, that's beautiful. It's a great photograph. I love seeing it with my eyeballs, but I would never want to paint it because it's too
Hmm.
symmetrical. It's too perfect. You know what I
Hmm.
mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So maybe that's what he's meaning
Hmm.
in that.
Yeah, I can get on board with that. Um, my note to myself for that quote was, yeah, humble yourself before nature. It's too majestic for you to do it justice. I'm like, speak for yourself, buddy.
I saw that.
Um,
Yeah.
which, yeah, just teasing a little bit, but no, I think I'd get on board with what you're saying. I definitely when we've been out painting out west, for instance, some
Mhm.
of the landscapes there are just so majestic. And like, what can I even add to this? Like, what can I say about it?
Right.
So it can be tough. It's fun to paint. Don't get me wrong. I love doing it. Um, but how much can you really put your stamp on it? Um, so it can be fun to find the more subtle things. So in this respect, I do agree with Hawthorne um, to not necessarily find the ugly things and make them beautiful, but um, maybe more overlooked things if you have something to say about them, you know.
Right. And the average person who doesn't really know a lot about art or painting or hasn't really developed a visual vocabulary for much outside of, oh, that's pretty,
Hmm.
um, maybe also and I don't know if I have a quote about it, but he did kind of say something to the effect of like, it's our job to take things that maybe weren't noticed and weren't that first thing that you see and bring them into light so that people can see them,
Hmm.
So there's that piece too that, there is kind of this to the untrained eye, there's lots of things that are obviously beauty, obviously have beauty.
Hmm.
Um, and then there are, lots of things that are beautiful, but it's not as obvious to someone who hasn't been looking for it,
Hmm.
maybe.
Yeah, yeah. One thing, I don't know if I can find a good quote for this. but because he relates everything back to color, I could see a lot of this, the things he's saying about beauty being wrapped up in finding beautiful color out in
Mhm.
nature. Let me see.
Yeah, you have some about purple, right?
Yeah. Oh, here's one. Yeah. So don't brag too much about seeing that purple, meaning purple in a shadow. You may have purple shadows, but make the purple so it will fool me. Meaning you'll find subtle hints of purple, blues, gray, all kinds of stuff in those shadows. So put the color in there, make it beautiful, put life in that shadow with color, but don't it's not straight out of the tube purple. Like I'm not telling the viewer this is purple. I want you to see a shadow and feel purple, you know,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. You also had something you disagreed with in your we for those of you listening, we shared different quotes with each other of things that we found to be interesting before we hopped on here. And there was one about edges that I thought you disagreed with and I thought was pretty correct.
Oh, interesting.
I know, I did think it was interesting too. It says, there is no such thing as an edge in nature. So don't worry about, is it wire edges? Did he really say that? Wire,
Uh,
that might be a
yeah,
typo.
no, he did.
Was it wire
Yeah, which
edges?
I think meant like contour drawings
Like,
or like a
okay.
line
Okay.
drawing. That's what I assumed.
I was like, that's a weird word to, to use for that.
Mhm.
If your values are right, you won't be offended too much by an edge. It's when the values are bad that you criticize a canvas as too edgy. And remember that if your colors are right, your values are right too. Like that
Uh,
part I probably disagree with. The colors are right, your values are right. That's,
I
I
would
don't think
reverse that.
that's right,
If
right.
your values are right, then your colors are at least in the ballpark.
Right. But I did think it was interesting because it's like if your values are right, you won't be offended by an edge, he's saying. So if
Mhm.
you've made your values, I always think it's interesting because people are like hard edges, soft edges, and I can honestly tell you I'm not ever thinking about an edge.
Mhm.
Like that's just not a part of what I'm thinking about because
Mhm.
I do tend to agree with him that if the values are right, your edges are going to be right, because what makes an edge is that contrast between values. And
Yeah.
so if your values are shifting appropriately, then you're not going to be offended by an edge because it's going to be inherently softened by the values shifting in an appropriate manner.
Mhm.
Um, so I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. I think the portion that I disagreed with was that first line. There is no such thing as an edge in nature. Like, of course there is. Like we see where shapes bump up against each other. That's what we call an edge. And again, this might just be a semantic thing, but
Well, and I think though, if you think of things in their 3D-ness,
mhm.
I know that's like a good term, right? Um, a tree does not have a flat edge. It has a rounded, curved edge, and we may
Mhm.
perceive it as being a flat edge, but I think what he's saying here is that the edge is a visual edge, but if you got up on that tree, you'd see that it's round. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
In
yeah,
my
yeah.
head, it's more like I don't know. It's funny.
I understand what you're saying. I
It's
guess
not as hard in real life as it seems visually, I guess.
yeah. Um, yeah, this is just yeah, a semantic quibble on my part because a lot of the sentiment I think is true. And like what you said, if you're getting the values right, so you've got some background information that's it's a lot of similar values. Even if you like have a very hard edge with your paint, it won't feel as hard because those values are so similar. It's not going to
Mhm.
contrast and like pop out. Um, but there can be situations. I mean, this is where I think about edge work. And in my hierarchy of painting, it's the least important. So I've got drawing, value, color, and edges. So edges way down at the bottom. Um, but I mean, you can have hard and soft edges in the way I think of it. So if I'm using a palette knife, quite often that will leave a very hard edge if I keep a nice crisp edge on it. Um, Versus a bristle brush will leave a softer mark, so it's not as tight of an edge. Does that make sense?
It does, but what's interesting is there's almost like the physical edge.
Mhm.
Okay, so in pastel, we're
Go
also
on.
talking slightly differently just because in
Mhm.
pastel we don't have the element of texture as
Right.
much.
Hmm.
So for you, when you're talking about edges, it's not only the edge of the actual subject, but it's
Right.
also the edge of your mark.
Yep. So
So distinguishing the difference between those two things, I think, is important. Does that make
that's
sense to you?
yes, yes, 100%. And you're right. I am kind of in my thinking of edges, I'm thinking of brushwork and the actual edges of shapes
Okay.
in painting. So
I was thinking more like the subject edges.
sure.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
All right.
We could
Moving
agree.
on. I think, and again, this is where I think kind of sussing out how much of this is just language that we're disagreeing on versus
Right.
actual concepts. Um, because I mean, this is how most arguments happen in the world is we agree on what's actually happening. We just disagree about how to say it.
Sure.
Yeah, what else do we disagree with? Oh, he had some just funny lines. The canvas looks a little more like it. I think he was talking to a student here. Uh, Looks as if you had a few ideas. I mean, painting ideas. A philosopher would probably be a low-grade moron if he
I
tried to
saw
paint.
that.
I was like, oh, that's great.
That made me laugh.
But that gets back to what we were talking about before, clarity of intent, having
Sure.
a singular idea and like really pushing that in the painting.
Which is really funny to me because I think a lot of philosophers are better abstract thinkers just generally.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of funny that he would think the ability to think more abstractly would be to your detriment. Do you know what
Hmm.
I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I think that that's a really good thing, not a really bad thing, but it's just kind of that I saw that. There was a dig on philosophers, which I was a philosophy major, and there was a
Hmm.
dig on illustrators
Oh
a little
yeah.
bit, right? And you were
Uh,
an illustrator, so we were both offended.
I think I got that one. He was talking to a student. Yeah. You know too much. An illustrator, aren't you?
I
I
saw
thought
that.
so. Uh, yeah, you think you know a great deal about the structure of the face, the bones underneath it. Forget all that. Don't try to show me how much you know. Be humble about it. Uh, yeah, don't ask me to be satisfied at these self-satisfied pretty things.
Mhm.
Um, which again, like there's some of that. And I'm like, I understand what he's talking about. If you're getting too much into describing form that isn't necessary,
Mhm.
but all uh, the structures are there in the face or whatever with the figure. I understand, but uh, I think the overall sentiment I think is uh,
Well, it's funny. You've seen those painters. I won't mention names just
mhm.
because I don't need to be canceled that much. But where all the faces they paint pretty much look the same because you think you
Mhm.
know the bones underneath of what the structure of a face looks like, and you're
Yeah.
like, okay. If you've seen one, you've seen all of them.
Hmm.
Um, Definitely seen it in the pastel world.
Hmm.
And so to me, I think I take that more as that. But I saw the illustrator dig and I thought, oh man,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
that was intense.
I kind of liked it. Um,
That's
and,
funny.
and this he's not wrong. Like there is. And it gets back to, where his priorities are about describing form with color and really being so heavily focused on color and not so much on drawing, where illustrators come at it from the other angle, where it's like we need this structure first, and then you build up the color and nuance on top of that. Um, so it's different ways of going about it. Um, and, as we all get to a greater or lesser extent judgmental of how other people do it because that's not the way I do it. Um, but we all get a little caught up in our own methods and thinking like this is the right way. Um, so I'm not going to fault him too much for it, but it did make me chuckle.
I did think it was not to like harp on this, but I did think because several of the comments that or the passages that you had pointed out very much diminished the value of drawing and contour edges. And the first person I thought of was Peggy Kroll Roberts.
Mhm.
And my God, the woman, you know, she's really interesting. You should totally go take a class with her if you can. Um, she starts, I think I have a little book here. I'll have to see if I can find it. But she starts a painting with that contour. And there's something so raw and human about it that I just absolutely adore her and her work. But one of the things she talks about is her first drawing class in college. They handed you a piece of paper and they handed you an X-Acto knife. And they said, this is what you're drawing with,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
And so for her, to figure out that contour with a knife
Mhm.
was how she was taught to draw.
Mhm.
Which I think is pretty fascinating because you have to basically attack it and you can't tape things back. You have
Mhm.
to be a decision maker.
Yeah.
And to me, there's something really beautiful about that humanity piece,
Mhm.
that is oftentimes missing when things are kind of glossed and glazed and fluffed and sweetened.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there's something really beautiful about that, attacking it in a contour way. I'm very attracted to contour myself, and actually, I'm very attracted to gesture as well.
Mhm.
And so it is a little offensive to be like, but at the same time, I will say, and I've said this to students, I'm like, when you're doing a drawing, make a map, think states, not cities and towns and roads, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so when I'm saying you're doing a drawing, you're basically making an armature. You're not
Mhm. Mhm.
spending 12 hours doing some kind of elaborate drawing and then throwing paint on top. I do get that piece because to me
Mhm.
that is a little yucky,
Yeah.
you know?
It's when it ends up being way too rigid, um, quite often, I think. That's where, like, as a former illustrator, I would start with a pretty well thought out drawing, and then I would paint over the top of that, and I would lose the drawing, and then I would have to reestablish the drawing, and then going back and forth. And it for plein air, it was awful because you just don't have the time to be redoing the drawing over and over again.
Hmm.
And whenever I would do that, it would end up very stiff and kind of lifeless. And it wasn't until I started thinking about drawing in terms of shapes, putting down planes, like you said right at the start, we're putting
Hmm.
down shapes of color that, and getting back to edges, I was like, well, where is the edge of this? What is the contour? What are, all these things? Thinking of drawing in those terms rather than linear drawing. That's what helped me, I guess, become a painter instead of an illustrator. Um, which actually one of the things he repeats over and over again is spots of color.
Hmm.
And I'm curious if he actually means shapes of color rather than spots, because spots to me kind of denotes just little blobs of color. Um, spots of color next to one another. And I'm like, well, what about I would kind of think of it in terms of shapes of color, you know. I don't know. How did
Hmm.
you take that?
I agree. I guess I was more envisioning like if you had a palette knife, let's say.
Hmm.
And so to me, the spots of color, at least like what was coming to mind was not large shapes of color, but kind of swatches of color
Hmm.
that would compile into bigger shapes. But I wasn't really
Oh, sure.
thinking shapes.
Yeah.
But that's interesting.
I guess that so there's, tiling. You can tile little spots of color and then kind of piece together a form that way. I guess that would kind of make sense to what he's talking about as well.
Hmm.
Um, and that definitely makes sense when he's talking about big shapes because another line he had was about, let's see if I can find it. Sorry, I wrote down way too many.
No, it's all
Uh,
good.
I don't know. Well, basically the idea was more nuanced color. So if you've got a big, I think in the line I was looking for, it was a big purple shape. So instead of just one note of purple across the whole shape, mix up your purple with different colors, so you end up with more variety within that shape.
Hmm.
So you're getting and actually look for. I mean, this is my addition. Look for the nuance within that shape, because you will see it, and then you can really, punch up some of those nuances as needed.
Hmm.
There were a lot of things like that, like just little. They almost felt like throwaway comments, but there was a bit of wisdom in them of what it takes to make a painting a little bit more interesting. He's not really explicitly saying create more variety in your color, although actually I think he did explicitly say that a few times. But things like that we as painters, like you said right at the start, like I could have used that information about 10 years ago.
Right. Yeah.
Now it's lost on me a little bit, but
Yeah, and I
uh,
think that comes with the experience. He did say, I have another quote here. Don't try to be an artist all at once. Be very much a student. Be always searching, never settle to do something you've done before, which is
mm,
definitely something that I hold near and dear because I think people are oftentimes settling to do the things they've done before. And
mhm.
like that Kung Fu Panda quote. Have I told you this already?
I don't think so.
Like, my kids used to like love Kung Fu Panda when they were little.
Mhm.
And there's a quote in the movie and it says, if you only do what you can do, you'll never be anything more than you are right now.
Mm.
I'm
Mhm.
like, ooh, that's deep in a Kung Fu Panda movie.
Yeah.
But what I like about that is kind of sharing this sentiment, that if you settle for c that kind of repetitive, formulaic type practice where you're just going through the motions, and doing things that you've already done,
Mhm.
you're not really growing at all.
Yeah.
You're just kind of repeating,
Mhm.
which I don't know.
Yeah, you kind of always need to take one step outside of your comfort zone. And that's how I like to think about it. Like you've got this circle that you live in, and then every time you try something, take one step outside and expand your circle a little bit more every time. Um, but yeah, that's Kung Fu Panda.
I
That's some
know,
good
it's
stuff.
deep. Yeah, it is.
Uh,
There's another really good quote in that movie. I'm trying to remember what it is. I don't remember. But yeah, I do think that that's important. And I do like that he is encouraging people to always be a student of seeing,
yeah,
you'll
yeah.
always see more when you're looking for more.
Mhm.
So,
I had written down a line similar to that. We must all teach ourselves to be fine, to be poets. Spend a lifetime in hard work with a humble mind. In his attempt to develop the beauty he sees, the artist develops himself. Which, yeah, along those same lines of, yeah, be a perpetual student, be humble, but also work hard. And I like that tag on the end, the artist develops himself, because if we think about life in those terms, be humble, be a student. I think I think the world would be a better place.
it would be, you're right.
Um, and now it's easier said than done, and it can be a little. It disregards a lot of the complexities of life, but I think the point still stands. You know.
I think that's important to be humble.
Mhm.
Because paintings will humble you sometimes.
Mhm.
It's good to remember that. But they're not going to humble you if you're just doing the same formula over and over and over again, because then you are going to succeed because it's just going to be the same thing that you already did already.
Mhm.
So if you're not painting in a formulaic fashion, you certainly will
Mhm.
uh, be humbled because there are going to be times where you're going to reach out for an idea and it's not going to be executed the way you wanted. And
Mhm.
oh crap, that didn't work. So for me personally, somebody said to me like, "Well, what do you do?" I'm like, I throw it in the trash and start over." Like
Mhm.
Because I say, you don't have to spend more time on a mistake just because you already spent a lot of time getting to the point where you are in the mistake.
Hmm.
It's okay to say, that didn't work. I'm throwing it away. I'm going to attack it from this new perspective and figure out how to make it work the way I want it to work. And
Hmm.
so, you know, those experiences certainly will humble you, and you can't have them if you aren't challenging yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. This whole notion, it's, and I don't know how much you think about this consciously, like the whole idea of like stepping a little outside your comfort zone, because I think inherent in all of this is you have to have a level of curiosity. So like if you're curious, you are just automatically going to try to expand your horizons a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, do you ever think about how far outside your comfort zone you should stray? You know what I mean? Like if you're always trying something new and always struggling and always failing, that could be very demoralizing. I mean, in sports, they talk about like a culture of losing,
Hmm.
with the team if they're just losing and then they never expect to win. Do you ever consider that?
I don't, but I was reading a book that I think we might consider down the road, by Csikszentmihalyi, which is Flow.
Mm-hmm.
And he says that there's this perfect, like, sweet spot, a proportion of having the skills to be able to accomplish something and challenging yourself enough that you make those skills greater
Hmm.
by pushing into something unknown. He actually like has a chart. We'll have to look at that or maybe post it in
Hmm.
notes or something for this, but that it's actually like there's this sweet spot of pushing yourself enough to make your skills greater than they currently are, but
Hmm.
having the skills to be able to push yourself further. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
So it's not
Yeah.
something that I'm always thinking about. I'm always learning because like I'm working on something in the studio right now and it's in ceramic and I came out here and a piece fell off and I was like, damn it. Like, um, I didn't think it was going to behave that way, and I should have made precautions that did not allow it to behave that way, but that was a mistake that I made. So,
Hmm.
um, there's always skill sets that you're like, oh, that didn't quite work the way that I wanted it to work, but now I know, and I'm not going to do that again. So
Hmm.
I do think that there's this element of learning from your paintings, learning on a painting, and knowing, having the self-awareness to know that you did something bad or wrong or not
Hmm.
good.
Hmm.
That's the humble piece, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
that didn't work. Um, and then figuring out how to not make the same mistake twice. That's ultimately, I think, what it is.
Yeah.
Making mistakes, learning from your mistakes, not making the same mistake on the next painting.
Hmm.
It sounds simple, but it's so many people want to correct their mistakes immediately, or they
Hmm.
want to like fix something on a painting that second. And I can tell you, there's only been one or two paintings where I've beat the painting to my will, and it actually was better than when just would have said, I need to stop and put this away,
Hmm.
or just throw it away, or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't want to be wasteful. I'm not saying like just like do stuff and throw it all away. I'm just saying, you know, you have to have these learning experiences and these mistakes and failures to be able to assign value to the information that you got from those mistakes. So,
Yeah.
I think that's really important
Hmm.
personally. So
Hmm.
I do it. And then but I also, I'll let a mistake live. I'm
Hmm.
like, well, that didn't work the way I wanted it to work, but I know that if I can let it live in its imperfect state, or I can, kill it.
Hmm.
Those are pretty much the two options in my book.
Hawthorne had a good line on this.
Did he?
It may have been accidental, but you knew enough to let this alone. The intelligent painter is always making use of accidents. So I think he was on the happy accidents before Bob Ross.
I love happy accidents. And there are times where you're like, "Oh, I didn't mean to do that, but that was better than what I was thinking of." So,
Mhm.
um yeah.
That actually, so this is to give our watercolorist friends a little credit. Um, there's something about an accident that is like the spontaneity and the chaos of watercolor. It's something you didn't intend, and therefore it's spontaneous. It's like some sort of weird evolution happening within the painting. But if you can recognize it and harness it, that creates more visual interest within your painting, so long as it's not distracting or taking away from what's your goal within the painting.
So what did we think? Did we like this book? Were we a fan? Was there anything in this book that changed your life, Mark?
I'm gonna give that a hesitant no. Um, it was, I enjoyed it. It was kind of like taking a step into his class, and just being like, oh, I've outgrown a lot of this. Um, and I don't want that to sound cocky. It's not so basic. It's a lot of good information for students. I would say that. Um, a lot of it, it wasn't like terribly like dogmatic though, which I mean some of it did kind of,
Except
this
his
idea,
hatred for drawing,
his
but
hatred for drawing and this idea of spots of color. Um, but yeah, it was a fun read. I wouldn't, it's not going to be like a hard recommend for everyone. Um, but I would say, well, one, it's like 90 pages, so if you want to just pick it up and breeze through it in an afternoon. But
right.
um, yeah, and it was yeah, kind of fun. Just a fun trip into someone else's classroom, I think. Um, but yeah, didn't really make me do any soul searching or anything like that. Um, it was more trying to figure out where are we actually disagreeing, and is it a semantic argument? Uh,
Hmm.
because this was written 90 years ago.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, how
Yeah,
about you?
it affirmed some things that I already believed to be true,
Hmm.
which is why I was like, oh, I would have liked this a long time ago. You know,
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
you kind of have a similar sentiment, but
Hmm.
um yeah, I do like his excitement for the subject and the why and the human spirit and the volatility of the excitement of painting. Like
Hmm.
I appreciate all of that.
Hmm.
Um, I'll say it one more time for those in the back. If you're not going to get a thrill, how can you give it to someone else? And I think that that is boils down to why I paint, which is why do you paint? And
Hmm.
you paint because you want to find something that you want to share with a viewer that you think is exciting and beautiful. And so I think he kind of echoed that sentiment, which to me is why I paint.
Hmm.
So,
I will say, to echo that idea, I loved. I know I was a little surprised by how relevant a lot of what he was saying is still today. I don't know why it would be any different, but like he's thinking about painting very similar to how we are. Like it's kind of a like a narcissism of small differences sort of idea, where like we're not that far apart in terms of the broader world of painting.
mhm.
We're quibbling over some pretty small differences. Um, but a lot of his ideas about painting, not just technique, but why it's important, why he does it, I think is still pertinent to where we are, and so that was kind of, I thought, interesting.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's definitely withstood, the test of time in the relevance of painting in plein air,
Hmm.
certainly.
Yeah.
Or the landscape in general, whichever you prefer.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if I should be surprised by that, but it was fun. This could have been written a week ago.
Well, I'm glad we took the time to read it.
Yeah. Yeah,
What
absolutely.
this
I should.
podcast is all about. Oh yeah, I was gonna do the same thing. Oh, but
I don't know. It
there we
feels
go.
blurry.
We have to do it in the middle where your face is.
Oh. Oh yeah, there you go.
Oh wait, no, you're still blurry. Oh, there you are.
Stupid.
So Hawthorne on painting. Um, do we should we start like a thumbs up, thumbs down on these books that we're reading? I just thought of this randomly.
Oh yeah, like in the comments?
No, no, I meant like
Or oh,
end
like
of
do we
at
give
the
a
end of it, like do we give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down?
yeah. Yeah, I guess we might as well. Um,
I feel like it's short, it's sweet, it's to the point. It's
mhm.
probably going to repeat things that you already know, but it's still, an entertaining read.
Yeah, I would give it like a slight thumbs up,
Give it a mid.
mid. Yeah, like I said, it's not going to change your life, but it was a fun read, I would
Mhm.
say. You know,
Yeah,
so
cool.
so go out and get your copy today, people.
I know, right? So, what is our next topic, Mark? I feel like last time we should have told people that we were reading this book so that we could have them read it with us, but
Yeah, I think we were planning on doing that, and then somehow we got distracted with a
it's all
lovely
good.
conversation about plein air painting,
I
uh,
know. That was
as we
good.
are wont to do. So next time we're going to be chatting with Charlie Hunter, our dear friend,
Ooh, yeah.
about color, chroma, all of it.
I
Uh,
think that'll be exciting.
Yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting because of the difference between how all three of us treat color. So Charlie famously does not use color at all, or at least in his plein air work.
Hmm.
It's more, sepia tone. Whereas you're not shy with chroma at all.
Mm-mm.
And then I think I'm representing the middle somewhere in there.
You're the the median,
Yeah.
the mead. What is it? Yeah.
The mean, the average.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, that will be I'm not 100% sure when that one's going to come out, but we are recording it in a couple of days' time. So look
Yeah.
out for that one.
That'll be fun.
Yeah, looking forward to it. Well, this has been wonderful, Tara.
Yes. Thanks for joining us, everybody, and
Happy painting, everyone.
happy painting.